If you work as a manufacturing facilities engineer, installing a new piece of equipment can be as complex as the machinery itself. From prep work to alignment and testing, it's your team's job to put it all together. That's why it's good to have Grainger on your side. With industrial-grade products and next-day delivery, Grainger helps ensure you have everything you need close at hand through every step of the installation. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Now, the Hunt Palmer Show.
A magic beyond anything you could ever imagine.
You are now listening to the Hunt Palmer Show. Brought to you by Sagrera Farms on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Locking down the middle of the day.
You really think that's the best idea?
Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio, this is Hunt Palmer.
It's quite a piece of work.
Welcome in. Hunt Palmer coming to you from the Mercedes-Benz at Baton Rouge studio downtown in the capital city on this Thursday. It means we're brought to you by Sagrera Farms Premium Beef. Working towards the weekend. Hope your Thursday's been a good one. Appreciate you locking us in here on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. We got tons to do over the next couple of hours. Pretty shortly, we'll go up to Hoover, Alabama. Joe Healy, D1 Baseball's SEC Extra Team, is going to join us coming up at 1:30. We'll have, in the second hour, some sound from Joe Sloan. Chris Blair, voice of the Tigers, going to join us also from Hoover at 2:15. So lots and lots and lots to do. They're underway in the morning session. This one of particular interest to LSU baseball. Right now in Hoover, it is 3-1. Texas A&M and Auburn doing battle. The Aggies lead 3-1. Some interesting storylines in this one. Jace Laviolette, probably the most draftable player on that Texas A&M team, left the game after being hit on the hand with a pitch. We'll see what materializes from that. But A&M leading right now, playing, I think, for their seasons live right now. Auburn saving Sam Dutman for tomorrow if LSU gets there. So we'll talk about those two teams when we come back in the next segment. I do want to talk some Saints here, specifically Jake Haener. So let's start the way we do every single day with our Genesis opening drive.
It's time for Hunt's Opening Drive, presented by Genesis of Baton Rouge.
All right, news from Adam Schefter earlier today about Jake Haener, the Saints' presumably third-team quarterback to this point after Spencer Rattler took the starting reps when Derek Carr went down last year, and the Saints go ahead and draft Tyler Shook, and then Derek Carr retires. So that feels like it leaves Jake Haener as the third option for this Saints team. And then we get word that he's got an issue with his oblique. He hurt it during some extra throws earlier this week, and he may not be able to help the Saints or to participate at all until training camp. Now, there are two layers to this story. One is how that impacts the New Orleans Saints quarterback situation, and two is how it impacts Jake Haener specifically. And I think those are very different because I don't believe that Jake Haener has a viable future in the Saints organization. Now, let me be very clear. There is never I shouldn't say that. There is very rarely a time that it's a terrible idea to take a quarterback. Generally speaking, you want to take a flyer on a quarterback, that's probably a good thing to do. Quarterback's the most important position in all of American sport, and it really helps to have one of them. If you don't, you're in big, big trouble. And even if you do have one, having a capable backup on a cheap deal is a good thing to have. The Saints were in quarterback purgatory after Drew Brees moved on. They tried Jameis Winston. They tried Andy Dalton. They signed Derek Carr. But you always felt like they were looking for the next guy. And I have no problem at all with the New Orleans Saints drafting Jake Haener in the 4th round of the 2023 draft. None at all. And he came in, and some of the folks liked what he did at practice and did a little bit of good in the preseason. And when Derek Carr went out of games, Jake Haener was called upon that week. Now, when the Saints had a week to prepare for said game, after Carr went down, they went to Rattler. The reason they went to Rattler, he's way more talented, and the upside is way, way bigger. The odds are neither one of them are full-time starting quarterbacks for a franchise in the future, but Rattler's upside significantly higher than Haener's. Haener is 6'1". He's 200 pounds. He's got an okay arm. He's an okay athlete. He's not a statue. He doesn't have a weak arm. He's just average across the board. Size, ability, mobility, all that. And Spencer Rattler is going to be the backup quarterback on this team, Tyler Shook. I feel very comfortable saying that. I don't know if confidence the word, but comfortable saying that. And you look at Jake Haener and what his career arc could be in the NFL, and to me, he's a backup. And he has one thing that most teams will prioritize in a backup, and I think is the reason why the Saints went to him when Derek Carr got hurt. It's because he's very comfortable taking the snap, surveying the defense, and doing something easy. And really, that's what you're looking for out of a backup quarterback. There aren't many backup quarterbacks in the league that can come in and just start ripping 25-yard outs and picking defenses apart. When your backup comes in, you kind of need him to steady the ship because the game plan's been put in for the starter, and the starter takes 95% of the reps, and the backup just needs to function. And Haener can kind of do that. You can call it a positive, you can call it a negative. Either way, when you talk about his completed air yardage average, so not the average the completions go when the play is done, how far he throws it before they catch it. In his NFL career, which is not long, it's only 8 games. But that is 8 games. And in 8 games, his average air yardage per completion is 3.3 yards. That, to me, is a backup. You want to throw the little colloquialism, check down Charlie. You want to, however you want to phrase it. I'm just telling you, for me, that's a guy whose ceiling is a backup. And right now, the Saints kind of have a guy who can back up in Spencer Rattler, and you're going to try Tyler Shook. So to me, when we talk about the Saints and how this affects the Saints, I think less than minimally. Like, that's how less than minimally. The Saints have a second-round pick, the highest draft pick they've taken in 50 years at quarterback. And they've got Spencer Rattler, who they trusted over Haener last year, and who I think is going to compete for the job and be the backup. You got to have a third quarterback, whether the Saints go sign Teddy Bridgewater or Carson Wentz or whoever, whatever, or whether they keep Jake Haener as a third quarterback. I don't really care. I don't think it's very impactful for the New Orleans Saints. Now, as far as Jake Haener goes, this could be impactful for him. Because right now, at this point in Jake Haener's career with Jake Haener's skill set, there is no more important time than training camp and preseason football. That is Jake Haener's job security. Because he's not going to get a chance to go out there and prove himself in October. That's not happening. I'd be stunned, or the Saints have had 2 injuries and it's a bad scene. But I think there's a reasonable chance in 3 preseason games that Jake Haener is going to have a chance to go out there and play, 4 quarters of football? 5 quarters of football, maybe? Maybe not, but maybe. He's certainly not going to play 5 quarters in the regular season. And you're teetering on that spot where you can wash out of the league because you know that there are going to be some portion of the backup reps that are going to be going to the Jameis Winstons now, the Colt McCoys of year after, McCourt. No, I'm looking for the brothers. One went to UCLA, and now I can't think of it. Whatever. It's a McNown. What? McCown. The McCowns. It could not show up.
I was trying to figure out that.
It wouldn't show up in my brain. But those guys were backups for 10 years.
Yes.
And there's a sizable portion of the backup crop in the NFL that is those guys that have been in the league for 8 or 9 or 12 years, and they're taking the spots. Then you've got young guys that have been drafted, just like Haener, and you better find a way to latch on, or you're going to be sailed down the river. And that's where Haener's approaching. It's only year 3, so maybe not. But this is a big preseason for him to kind of prove he can show up, and now he's a little bit compromised and may not be able to help until training camp. Now, look, it's the end of May. There's 2 months until the Saints report to training camp. So he's got time to rehab this and to rest this and to get back. But if you're looking at this from Haener's perspective, it's like, oh boy, this is a bad deal. If you're looking at this from the Saints' perspective, I just don't see it being a big deal at all. Maybe if Carr retired and you didn't have a quarterback and you thought it was going to be Haener and Rattler, even though I think that would be Rattler's job to start with. But at this point, with Tyler Shook in the equation, I just don't see any way, shape, or form that Jake Haener's going to help this Saints team. And if he is asked to do so, something's gone very, very wrong with the first two guys on the totem pole. So that's the news of the day before Saints OTAs cranked up. They have just finished OTAs as we speak to you right now, so there will be some media availability, and we may get some news for you later in the show. But as of right now, Jake Haener's non-availability is the story of the day for the Saints. Our Thursday shows are brought to you by Sagrera Farms Premium Beef, and you've heard me now for over a month talk about Sagrera Farms Premium Beef and how they offer some of the finest beef in the world just north of Baton Rouge. But what I've been telling you, and what is still true, is they serve sides, which is half a cow, and whole cows for you to take home and put in the freezer. Strips, fillets, ribeyes, all that. Well, right now, Memorial Day weekend, grilling season, there is a limited time offer that you are going to want to take them up on. They've got ground beef that they're going to serve in 2-pound packs. Dry aged, 35 to 45 days, no water, no preservatives, no additives, and only one animal is present in that pound and 2-pound pack that you get. One animal. There are places you can go where you may talk about 300 DNAs present just in mass-produced ground beef. Not Sagrera Farms. One animal, one DNA. 2-pound packs, ground beef. You want to make the best burgers you have ever made at home? This is the time to take me up on this offer and call Sean Sagrera. This is his cell phone number. Call Sean. Go out there to Sagrera Farms in Ethel. Pick up your ground beef. You're going to love it, and you're going to be back to get more. It's 225, obviously, right here in Baton Rouge, 719-1723. 719-1723. Call Sean. Say, I'm interested in the ground beef. Got some folks coming over for Memorial Day. Want to get it on the grill. Sean can help you out with that. It's Sagrera Farms Premium Beef. They bring you our Thursday shows each and every week. We'll step aside, come back, get you caught up on the goings-on in Hoover. That's next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Highland Insurance Group, HighlandIG.com is that website. Jonathan Carver and his team, phenomenal folks to work with. They are technical experts in the insurance game. This is not somebody that's going to call you up, sell you a bill of goods they can't capitalize on, and say, oh, I'll save you 20%. That's not really realistic in this insurance market. But what what Jonathan Carver and his team can do at Highland Insurance Group is make sure that you are covered. If you're a business owner, you don't know when that car accident's coming on your commercial vehicle. You don't know when that cyber attack is going to hit and how much that could cost if your policy is not in place. What if there's a lawsuit? You're talking about a group of folks here in Baton Rouge that take insurance very seriously and can make sure that your business is taken care of at a fixed cost. It's the Highland Insurance Group. Check them out online, HighlandIG.com. It's the Highland Insurance Group, HighlandIG.com.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Sagrera Farms.
Well, I told you we were going to get the latest from Hoover, and I'll tell you that Terrence Keel Jr. just made an incredible catch against the wall, and Texas A&M does lead Auburn 3-1 as they will play on in the 8th inning, I think. My eyes just aren't good enough to tell that. But I will tell you this, in the next segment, we're going to talk to Joe Healy from D1 Baseball, and he will tell us all that's going on. But there is breaking news in the world of college football, and we're certainly going to get to that first. Brett McMurphy reporting via his Twitter, and I'll just read it straight off. Huge news. 2025 college football playoff changes to straight seeding. Top 4 seeds get first-round byes regardless if it won a conference title, sources said. Conference champs still get auto bids, but are seeded based on ranking. This, meaning 2025, will be the final year of a 12-team playoff, with 2026 expanding to 14 or 16 teams. So that's what we're looking at here in college football. And let me tell you, this is the most obvious change I have ever seen. Because when you look up at that board and you see byes for Boise State and Arizona State, we have screwed this thing up. So it was obvious when that happened that we have to do something different. We can't send teams that have played murderous schedules on road trips to first-round opponents while Boise State sits back in Idaho and watches. That doesn't make any sense. Great job beating Utah State. Real proud of you. Thrilled you could go down and beat the San Diego State Aztecs, who all the other playoff teams would have beaten by 50 in their home stadium. But you don't get a bye for that anymore. That was very, very obvious. So this is very, very good. Now, you still are going to give auto bids to conference champions, which I'm not thrilled with. I don't think everybody needs an equal bite to the pie when the pie bites are not equal at all. The SEC and the Big Ten are not equal to the Big 12 in any way, shape, or form. However, I understand that this is progress, and I'll leave it there. I'm not going to fly off the handle at it. I'll fly off the handle if you give Boise State a bye, which is what we did this time around, and we screwed up. I don't like that Indiana got in at all. But we're making progress. And that progress is eventually going towards a 16-team playoff that weeds out the little man and allows the big boys to go play. And you're going to see more of the cool stuff we saw, like Clemson going to Texas and Tennessee going to Ohio State. And you're going to see less of Arizona State getting a bye. Now, you can talk about how well Arizona State played against Texas in the Peach Bowl all you want. That's all well and good. And I'm not here to suggest that in one game over 60 minutes that there aren't some teams that could go play other teams and have a certain result. That's not necessarily the case I'm making. Now, if you play that over time, I know what's going to happen. But in one game, things can happen. But what we can't do is treat these conferences and these schedules equally at all. And this is kudos to whoever's calling these shots, the college football playoff powers that be, that corrected this immediately. This took 1 year. It took one time where we sit there on a Sunday and they flash up the initial playoff and we're all excited because we got 12 teams in and there's more drama than 2 or 4 and they're seeing how it all works out. And then all of a sudden it flashed up on the board and everybody kind of looked at this and went, wait, what now? What did we do? We made what the rule? Okay. Well, we have to do that because that was the rule when we started this thing back in August, but we're not doing that anymore. And that is exactly what should have been done. Now, McMurphy did include how the brackets would have looked if we just did it off straight seeding, which we will do this coming year. What you would have seen would have been a bye for Oregon, a bye for Georgia, the SEC champion, a bye for Texas, who lost the SEC championship, and a bye for Penn State. They won the Big Ten. Your first round matchups would have been 9-seed Boise State against 8-seed Indiana, and Oregon would have gotten that winner as opposed to Ohio State. Okay? That makes more sense. Oregon was undefeated. Penn State was not the Big Ten champ. Oregon was. We carry on. Then you would have had the 12-5 game, Clemson and Notre Dame, and the winner of that game goes to play Penn State instead of SMU. Then you would have had Ohio State as the 6th seed, who had lost to Michigan. We know they tumbled to 6. They play Arizona State in the shoe. The winner of that plays Texas. We would have gotten Texas-Ohio State in the second round at a bowl site. And then SMU gets in as a 10 seed. They play Tennessee. Tennessee smokes them, and Tennessee plays Georgia. And our quarterfinals, instead of featuring SMU, instead of featuring Boise, instead of featuring Arizona State, would have been Oregon, Indiana, Penn State, Notre Dame, Texas, Ohio State, Georgia, Tennessee. Now we're talking.
That Penn State, Notre Dame, special.
Now we're talking. I mean, Texas, Ohio State.
Oh, that's crazy too.
Georgia, Tennessee rivalry. I mean,
yeah,
that's what the people want to see. That's how you decide a champion. You don't decide a champion by sending Boise to the second round. So that to me is positive thinking, and that to me is progress. A 16-team playoff is a lot of teams next year. And I wrestle with that a little bit. I do enjoy the high stakes of college football to a point. I didn't necessarily love the high wire act you had to walk in the BCS or the 4-team CFP. You had to be almost perfect. And I get the people that like that. I'm not necessarily one of them. I think that sometimes you play a bad game in September. That shouldn't derail your entire season. But now when you start to add teams that, have lost 3 and 4 games in a 16-team tournament, or you've lost 2 games in Big 12 play, I think we're teetering. I reserve the right to change my mind on it. I'm not rigid in my thinking. I believe right now, as I sit here and talk to you, that I like 12. I would like 12 with no auto qualifiers. And we take the teams that the committee ranks 1 to 12. We trust teams do it in basketball, and we trust teams to do it in baseball, and I think we can trust teams to do it, the committee to do it in football. And in basketball, the team that is the first team out of the field of 68, I don't have any sympathy for. Like one time that was Texas A&M, and take my Texas A&M thing out of it, okay? That's not the point. At one point, they lost like 8 games in a row. If you want to cry to me after losing 8 games in a row because you got hot late and you think you deserve to be in the field of 68, don't lose 8 in a row. Baseball this year, if Kentucky gets left out of this baseball bracket, well, you went 13 and 17 in the league. Sorry. You should have won 2 more of those games. I don't feel that bad for you. And when you're at a 12-team college football playoff, I did not look at anybody this year, nobody, and say, man, you really should have been in. Like, I think Ole Miss was one of the 12 best teams. Don't lose to Kentucky and Florida. Don't gag in Tiger Stadium. And I think that's where you're on that line. Is the 16th team worthy of competing for the national championship? I don't know. I'd have to see it. I'd have to look. I kind of like 12 right now. But potentially, we could look at this a different day and say, okay, I like how 16 worked there. And that gave us a lot of good matchups and a lot of good games, and I'm good with it. Right now, I feel like it's probably 12. But what I know for sure, these are just hypotheticals and what I think I might consider down the road. What I know for sure is that we're seeding this thing properly now. The committee may get one wrong here or there, but for the most part, in basketball and baseball and now in football, you're going to make your own luck with that committee, for the most part. We cannot have the unbeaten, undisputed number 1 team in the nation in Oregon having to play Ohio State right out of the chute. Like, that was clearly wrong. And we cannot have Boise catching a bye. Like, so I feel like this is great for the sport. I feel like this is another step towards our inevitability where it looks more like the NFL than college football as far as the relevant teams and who plays who. I don't know what it means for the future of conferences. And I don't know what's perfect, but this is the right direction. Last piece here, always LSU. I always tell you, okay, there's a rule change. What's my first thing? Oh, what's LSU? And to me, this is a positive for LSU in that we're inching closer to just including the big boys. This is a positive for LSU that you can still earn your way to an advantageous spot in the college football playoff by taking care of your own business, and that you're not going to be railroaded by conference champions having to get a bye when you've only lost 1 game in the conference championship game, and now you've got to kowtow to whoever won the Big 12. That's how I feel about LSU here. The SEC champion was always going to be taken care of, so I don't have to worry about that. Now my concern with LSU, what if you're not the SEC champion, and that's not going to be held against you now? Be held against you for a spot, because they're still going to give spots to the conference champion, but not seeding. And seeding, as we saw this past year, was vital in crowning a champion. So this is news from Brett McMurphy. If you're just catching the end of this and you're thinking, well, what is he exactly talking about? I'll read it one more time, and then we'll pause for a break to go to Hoover and chat with Joe Healy. But in 2025, so this year, the college football playoff is going to straight seeding. The top 4 seeds get first-round byes, regardless if you win a conference title. The conference champs still get an auto bid, but you're seeded based on your ranking. So you're not trumping the runner-up in the SEC with the ACC champion, whoever that may be. So I think this is great for the sport. I think it's the right thing to do. And if you look at what the bracket would have been this past year, your matchups are infinitely more interesting because it's a merit-based thing and not a slotting-based thing based on you competed against these teams in their conference, you competed against this teams, and that's the same because we all know it ain't the same. So great news for college football, and it starts this year. So this year, LSU, everybody's looking at them to make a championship run. We'll see if they can pull that off starting on Labor Day weekend. Our Thursday show is brought to you by Sagrera Farms. We'll step aside, go to Hoover, Alabama, talk with Joe Healy coming up next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
One Bath and Closets. OneBathAndClosets.com is the website. David Duvall and his team, 30 years redesigning and remodeling bathrooms and closets. Safety is a big deal in the bathroom. If there's someone in your life that's aging that wants to stay home but may be at a risk in the bathroom, how about mitigating that risk? Can't take it away, but you can mitigate it. So go ahead, go and put those non-slip floors in. Put guardrails at slippery spots. Walk-in tubs that are more convenient. Showers with a bench that are safer, more comfortable. All that can be done with One Bath and Closets. And the beauty of it is you don't have to call 4 different contractors. It's one call to One Bath and Closets. Go to the website, onebathandclosets.com. Check out pictures of their fantastic work. See the testimonials from their satisfied clients. And start the process with a free consultation with David. It doesn't cost you anything to sit down with him. It's One Bath and Closets. Onebathandclosets.com.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Sagrera Farms.
They are playing on in Hoover, Alabama. Bottom of the 8th inning, Texas A&M 3, Auburn 1. Winner gets LSU tomorrow night from the Hoover Met. That's where we go now. Joe Healy, D1 Baseball's SEC Extra team, is there, being stationed there all week. Good enough to give us a little bit of time here as they play some baseball in front of him. Joe, how are you?
Doing pretty well, Hunt. Good to be with you.
Good to be with you as well. Let's talk about some of the teams whose time is done in Hoover to this point. And I want to start with Kentucky. Is this a nervous week for them at this point?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I said, like, and I wrote this right as they lost, like, if the field came out right now, I'd like them in. The thing about it is, and you've seen this time and again, is that two things happen. One, other teams that are in competition with them improve their resumes, and they can't. And the second thing that happens, and let's not forget that the committee is made up of human beings, and sometimes when you lose that early in the week, by the time we get around to Sunday, Monday, you kind of get forgotten about a little bit. Now, I'm not saying that should matter, but it does seem like it matters sometimes, that what happens more recently is fresher in the mind, and so some of those other bubble teams that maybe help themselves might be a little fresher in that regard. But they're obviously, because they play in the SEC and because they had a pretty decent season at times, they're going to have some metrics that are going to stack up pretty well. But, you know, funny enough, like, one of the best things that can happen to them is Oklahoma keeps winning, because they swept Oklahoma. And if Oklahoma can get in top 25 in RPI, those become quad one wins. So, you know, they're the biggest Oklahoma fans on the planet right now.
Yeah, it's the crazy time about this time of year. People think I'm nuts for monitoring Hawaii scores because those are quad one wins for Oregon State, and I'm crazy for looking at that kind of stuff. I don't think it's going to matter for LSU, but I do find it fascinating this time of year. Another team that's gone home is Florida. Are they a 2 for you?
Yeah, I think so. I think there was a chance for them to really, you know, put themselves in a position to maybe play some home games. But yeah, I think that one's pretty cut and dry. I think they're a 2, and honestly, you know, maybe I think I probably said this 2 or 3 times on your air. Just like, now that Luke Haener is down, like, I just don't know how they continue on and put up a fight wherever they get sent, whether that's, you know, Tallahassee or elsewhere. Like, it's just going to be a tough road for them with all of the injuries.
And then a team that beat them last night into the wee hours of the morning is Ole Miss. Do you feel like they've done enough to play in Oxford next week?
You know, you would think so, but the issue is, it's just, we've talked about this before, just being kind of a weird year where, you know, the resumes are just so different in so many ways, and they're in, you know, they're like 17 in RPI, and that's fringy, but at the same time they have 16 quad one wins. There's something like, I don't have it in front of me, like 16 and 14 against quad one teams, and like, you look at even teams that are in competition for top 8s, and it's better than those marks against quad one. So it really is going to come down to what the committee values. Now, my hunch is they're probably behind a team like Tennessee. Now, that's just Joe's hunch based on kind of vibes and everything else, but that's kind of where I'm at. But, you know, if they continue winning, obviously they still have a lot of runway to improve their case, but it feels a little light right now.
If Tennessee loses their next game, they would be the poster child for the motto, don't get swept, because it was so ugly for a lot of time, but they just kept getting one. And if you get enough of one, then you do enough, in the SEC at least.
Yeah, and that would have been the case too had Bama beaten them, and I mean, Bama was the exact same thing, where it's like the series wins you look at and it's like, okay, they're kind of lacking, but yeah, they never had those disaster weekends where they get swept and they look terrible. So yeah, you're exactly right. Like, if they're able to pull this off and play some home games, it will be a perfect example of here in the SEC of just don't get swept and take care of the series at home you should take care of, which not Tennessee didn't necessarily do that, but they did enough.
All right, let's look at the game that's currently going on because LSU gets the winner. You saw Cam Tilley start for Auburn, which was on schedule for them last week. He started on Thursday. You saw Justin Lampkin get the ball for Texas A&M. And Ryan Prager pitched the day before. Weston Moss for A&M is out there throwing his 35th pitch right now. So as far as pitching goes, what can LSU kind of expect? I would assume Sam Dutton tomorrow, but what is advantageous for LSU, do you think, the way these two teams look right now?
Yeah, I think you'd want A&M just give it for a couple things. One is that, they've burned their, two best starters and their best bullpen arm right out of the gate. So, you're going to get a team that's a little bit further along in the pitching situation. Second is that it doesn't look like you're going to have Jace Laviolette. He's in the dugout in a cast and looks kind of emotional. He got hit on the hand with a pitch earlier in the game, tried to tough it out and go run. And after a couple of pitches, they pinch ran for him because it looked like he couldn't even really pay attention to what he was doing running at first base because he was in so much pain. So they pulled him out. So it looks like they're not going to have him, in addition to not having Caden Sorrell, who for a lot of the season was their hottest hitter. So right now, A&M just kind of a little bit walking wounded on top of the fact their pitching's further along. So, Auburn, I think, presents a stiffer challenge, but based on the way they played here today, it kind of looks like they might be just kind of eager to get back to Auburn.
Does A&M need to win out all the way through Sunday?
Something like it. I don't think this right now I don't think this win right here is enough. You really got to keep winning if you're A&M. So something like that. If they get to Sunday, I think they're probably in good shape. And then obviously a matchup with LSU is going to provide a good opportunity for them.
How do you feel about LSU today? What if they're one and done against A&M, which would be the worst for their RPI, I guess?
I still feel pretty good about it. I think they're kind of they're the one that I look at that I've been questioned most about being a top 8, but I still feel good about it. You don't want to go one and done here necessarily, but something tells me they'll be okay, both in the resume standpoint and also I think they'll come to play a little bit because look, the benefit of where they are in the bracket is you can just kind of treat that like a series now. Like you're just you're in good shape to just kind of go out there and play and not have to worry about do we get cute with pitching or what. You just go out there and play like it's a weekend and let the chips fall where they are.
Appreciate the time, Joe. Let you get back to some baseball. I know it's busy over there. We'll be following along from far away on SEC Extra on the D1 Baseball, and we'll talk next week.
All right, Hunt. See you, buddy.
He is Joe Healy from on site there at the Hoover Met. And as we look at it right now, A&M's going to their second best reliever right now in Caden Wilson. So if you're LSU, Texas A&M, if they win this game, they've got a 2-run lead in the 8th inning, and they have one out, and Auburn's got a couple on. Texas A&M tomorrow will not have Ryan Prager. He's their ace. Will not have Justin Lampkin, their number 2, who's throwing it better than anybody. Will not have Weston Moss, who's their number 1 reliever, who just threw 35 pitches. And then Caden Wilson is coming into this game right now. Plus, Jace Laviolette, who's their all-time home run leader and most draftable player, is out with a cast on his hand in the dugout because he got hit by his hand with a pitch. And Caden Sorrell, who's their second most draftable player, has been out for 2 weeks. And then if you want to go all the way back to the beginning of the season, Gavin Gahovic is their third most draftable player, and he hadn't played all year. They have almost nothing left. Now, grit, guts, guile, want to, momentum after 2 wins. But as far as I've told you all year that A&M is super talented and this and that. Like, the A&M team that goes out on the Hoover Met Field tomorrow is not going to be that talented if they beat Auburn. Now, they got work to do because they got a 2-run lead, and Ike Irish and Cooper McMurray are coming up, and we'll get you updated on all that happens there, and I'll let you know. But on the other side of this, Auburn has used its best reliever as well. Cam Tilley started. They went to Chad Myers, who threw 69 pitches. Tilley and Myers are toast. And then Cade Fisher, who did a good job against LSU. If you remember the name, he pitched for Florida in the championship series 2 years ago as a freshman, transferred to Auburn this year, was good in a start against LSU, and he's now working, and he's thrown 10 pitches and is theoretically going to come out for the next inning. Maybe not. We'll see. But they've used a lot of their best pitching. Sam Dutton will get the ball, I'm sure, if Auburn plays LSU tomorrow. But he hasn't pitched well at all the last 2 weeks. He threw 3 innings last week and gave up 7 earned runs against Ole Miss. So LSU's just sitting back and waiting. And one of the things that's very, very obvious in this format is that double bye is even more important than it used to be, because you've got teams that play on Tuesday that LSU could be waiting for on Friday. You know how many arms elite arms to win you've got to use to get to that point. Well, LSU's just sitting there using no arms. It is a massive, massive deal. So, again, I don't have a huge preference, and I'm with Joe that I think LSU's okay. But you heard him say that. Like, that's the team he gets asked about more than any. More than Auburn, more than Vanderbilt, more than Georgia, certainly more than Texas, certainly more than Arkansas. I think you are right there in that 5-6 range for SEC national seeds. And I think the SEC is going to get 6. So I think LSU is going to get one of them. And I think if they win tomorrow, they're probably going to get like the 4th or 5th seed. I'm not petrified by any stretch of the imagination at where LSU stands. All I did on Sunday was leave the door open for like, let's just see what happens this week. And right now, I've seen nothing to insinuate that LSU is in any trouble. Now, A&M wins today, and you lose the game tomorrow, and all of a sudden your RPI is 10, and the teams I've been talking about all week get hot. Well, maybe the discussion changes, and you can follow along. I'll have resume reviews up all weekend at LouisianaSports.net, even though we're not going to be doing a show, and I'll let you know how I feel. Right now, I feel fine, and I think LSU's in good shape. And you saw that Baseball America put their latest seeding out today, and they had LSU as the 4 or 5, one of the two, but right there in the middle, not back at 7 where D1 Baseball had them. But tomorrow, you're going to take the field, and Cade Anderson's going to start, and even though he's probably going to be on a pitch count of 70 or so, you're going to have Chase Shores, you're going to have Zach Cowan, you're going to have Kason Evans, you're going to have Jaden Newt, you're going to have whoever you want to throw in that game to finish it. And you win that, you turn around, you give it to Anthony Ianson on Saturday, you're in pretty good shape. LSU is probably, based on opponents, pitching, all that, I would suggest LSU is in the best shape of anybody in the tournament field. I can't, as far as winning the SEC tournament. Now, I don't care anything about winning the SEC tournament. They go and do it, great. Maybe they'll be the number 2 national seed, whatever. But I think LSU's in great shape right now. We'll see. Texas A&M just got a big-time out, a double play, and so they will go to the 9th inning with at least a 2-run lead, and we'll see how it shakes out. I'll be on the air when this game ends, and I'll give you kind of a full thought on where things stand once it goes final. Butch Thompson's out, the Auburn head coach, to kind of complain about a slide at second base and what the shortstop did. But, there was an interference. That's why they got the double play. Well, it was interference, so he didn't slide into the base. That's how that goes. So I'll keep you posted on the goings-on up in Hoover. We did just find out who the Saints' first-team offensive line was at OTAs today, so we'll talk about that when we come back.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Genesis of Baton Rouge. GenesisofBatonRouge.com is the website. Every car that's on the lot is online at GenesisofBatonRouge.com. It's just part of the experience being a Genesis driver. Wonderful customer service. Valet and complimentary maintenance for 3 years. 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty. Valet test drives at the office, at home. They want you to have an experience driving a Genesis. It's a luxury brand of vehicle. You get in the car, you'll tell. The sedan, all the way to the SUV, the entry level to the highest end. Phenomenal brand of vehicles. And what they tell me is that most of you have not been behind the wheel of a Genesis. I have. It's awesome. But if you have not, give them a shot. They're on Airline at Piku, across from Women's Hospital. Stop on by and take one for a spin. See what you think. You're going to love the people you're dealing with. You're going to love the vehicle. And maybe you can be the next Genesis driver from Genesis of Baton Rouge. Check them out online, GenesisofBatonRouge.com, GenesisofBatonRouge.com.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Sagrera Farms.
All right, Saints wrapped up little OTAs today, the first day that the media was allowed to go out there and check out the full squad. Of course, they had rookie minicamp back last week. And the most interesting nugget of the day that the media was allowed to check out was how the offensive line lined up. And this is something that we've talked about now since the draft. The Saints have options, and they have heavily, heavily, heavily invested in that offensive line. You take Cesar Ruiz, first round. You take Trevor Penning, first round. You take Talaiese Fuaga, first round. You take Kelvin Banks, first round. And you've got McCoy, who you took in the second round. That's a lot of draft capital to pump into one position. And it's obviously very, very important to Mickey Loomis and Ireland, and all those guys that have been there for a while. And then you've got Kellen Moore, who is now on their page. But what we didn't know is how that was going to line up. Did Trevor Penning do enough at right tackle to warrant staying there? Did Taliesin Fuaga acquit himself well enough at left tackle to stay there? Did they draft Kelvin Banks as a swing guy or with one firm position in mind, be it left tackle where he played at Texas, be it right tackle where there could be a hole that Trevor Penning loses? Well, we got maybe some of the answer today. The Saints began OTAs, and the first offensive line, left tackle, Kelvin Banks, first-round pick, Texas. Left guard, Trevor Penning, moving over from right tackle. You've got McCoy at center, Ruiz at right guard, and Taliesin Fuaga moving over to right tackle, where he starred at Oregon State. I got to say, I'm a little bit surprised. I thought Taliesin Fuaga's performance last year as a rookie left tackle in that league was pretty damn good. And I thought that's where he was going to play. Now, that may be naive, but he felt a little more proven than Kelvin Banks. Like, clearly, you draft a guy ninth, you feel like he's got something. But he's not proven against the edge rushers in the National Football League. He's just measurables at this point. But they feel like that's what they want to look at first. And I say, great. And it goes back to what we talked about earlier this week. If Kelvin Banks hits and he's as good as you think he is, which clearly you think he's great, if he's going to take Taliesin Fuaga's spot, who was as good a rookie as there was at left tackle last year, and Penning shows what he did at right tackle in the run game at guard and the limitations that he showed you in pass protection on an island at right tackle are lessened greatly by moving him inside to guard, you could have an offensive line that you could control theoretically for 3, 4, 5 years. And that is gold. And it's crazy how fast this can flip, because this time last year, we were looking at that offensive line going, well, we don't think Penning can play a lick at left tackle. Fuaga might be the right tackle. I don't know. What are they going to do? Is Nick Saldiveri good enough to play at guard? And Ruiz, like, he's not very good. Like, it was a mash unit, and we thought it was the complete liability of the team. And I'm not here to tell you that I think the Saints are going to dominate up front this year. But you now know a lot more about Fuaga than you did. You feel, however incrementally, better about Penning than you did. You've got another first-round pick that they feel good enough about to move Fuaga. And then you've got nearly an all-pro center in McCoy. And now, maybe they're not elite in 2025, but maybe they are in 2026. And guess what? They fit the criteria I've been barking about like a clown for 2 years. They're young and they're cheap. They're young and they're cheap. And you've got to get those guys into the fold. So the upside here is awesome. I love it. I love it. I love it. There's downside. Maybe Penning can't play guard. He's out the window after this year. You didn't pick up his option. You don't re-sign him. He's gone. Maybe Banks can't play left tackle in the NFL. And then you might have to switch him back. And like, you're not done. Like, this is not etched in stone. Saints have this figured out, moving on up. But what are we looking here for the Saints? We're looking for upside. I'm not asking for Tyler Shook to make the Pro Bowl this year. I'm asking for him to play to a level where I go, that might work. I'm not asking this offensive line to dominate week in and week out. I'm asking him to look at, this might work. There's something here. And if you can get enough of that out of 2025, we can start to look at 2026 and go, okay, this has a real chance. Again, I'm well aware. It is May. They are not putting on the pads and playing an opponent for 3.5 months. I got it. I'm not trying to overreact. But right now, all the Saints have to show us is a plan because the product is what it is. It's not going to be that great. But if the plan makes sense, that's all we can hope for at this juncture. And then you start to take your steps. And then you start to evaluate the rest of this draft class. I don't know where any of those guys fit in at this point. I know where Banks fits in. And if that works, you could have the foundation of your offense moving forward under Kellen Moore. We don't know everything about Kellen Moore, but I can tell you this. He called plays behind one of the best offensive lines in football in Dallas. And then he went to LA, and then he went to Philly, and he called plays behind one of the best offensive lines in the NFL in Philly. And he scored a lot of points doing it at both of those spots. So clearly, that's a massive deal to him, as it would be for anybody. This has got to be the first thing the Saints hit on. And if it is, it's a great foundational piece moving forward for the franchise. That's it for Saints OTAs here. That's it for hour number 1. Our Thursday shows are brought to you by Sagrera Farms Premium Beef. Incredible deal. Have never told you about this before because it's never happened before. But you don't have to buy a side, which is half a cow, or a whole cow like you generally do from Sagrera Farms. We're talking some of the best beef in the world. Told you about it for a month. You can buy 2-pound packs of ground beef. The best ground beef you will have ever had. And you can do it right now by calling Sean Sagrera, 225-719-1723. We're talking dry age, 30 to 45 days, no water, no preservatives, no additives, and 1 DNA present in that 2 pounds of ground beef. 1 DNA, 1 cow. And a lot of people ask, where's my beef coming from? Is it organic? Where is it raised? Like, where did you walk down and pick some ground beef? Like, where did it come from? You don't have to ask that question when it comes to Sagrera Farms. Several sides are going to come available in the coming weeks. So if you try that ground beef by calling Sean and you think this is something I gotta get, well, get on the list. And there's no deposit necessary. No deposit. If you don't like it, you don't pay for it. That's the promise he's willing to make to you at Sagrera Farms. Call Sean at 225-719-1723. It's 225-719-1723. We'll pause for Sports Center. We'll come back, talk some LSU football, some Joe Slow Sound next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.